Are you here?
I'm here. First, gonna do a roll call.
So we got to do roll call.
Are you ready, Mayor? I'm ready.
Oh, did you have a roll call?
Not yet. I'm ready.
Roll call of council.
Okay. Ken Walker.
Here.
John Jones.
Here.
James McMahon.
Good evening.
Josh Putnam.
Here.
Leanne Geyer.
Present.
Gary Hussey. Cliff Steiger.
Move to excuse Clint Steiger.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Ken, would you come up and give us a resume of yourself?
You want to give him a place the microphone up there. I'm Ken Barnett. I've applied for the position of Public Works Director and Community Development Director. I wasn't prepared for any speech.
Even better.
I worked for the city for a short amount of time. In 2004, I was the building inspector, code enforcement, utility inspector at that time. Worked real closely with John Walsh. I started under Mayor Howard Erickson and continued under Mayor Richard Gildrick. And then, for personal reasons, left the position. And over the course of my life, I guess, I've spent about 15 to 20 years in residential and commercial development, building all kinds of different construction phases. Over the last 5 years, I've been a boat captain in Alaska for the majority of the time. Right now, I'm currently living in Puyallup. I did live in the city of Pacific for about 10 years when I was here. I was on the planning commission for 4 of those years. I think that's probably about it. I'm sure you guys have some questions for me.
Any questions?
Some of the requirements of this job are to prepare and administer grants. Have you ever had any experience in that?
I've had a small amount of experience in that. I've dealt with a lot of grant writers, but I personally have not done any myself.
Have you experienced any long-range goals and capital improvement planning?
A little bit, yes.
And
it was primarily when I was working here, like I said, it was for about a year when I was working here at the city. We dealt with some of that stuff, some long-range stuff. Some of it was for the Stewart Road development project. And then other long-range capital planning would have been for some of my development projects that I've done.
Any more questions?
One of the issues we've had in recent years is FEMA floodplain management issue.
Yes.
What experience do you have with that?
As far as the floodplain, I've had a lot of development experience dealing with different floodplains that way. As far as dealing with FEMA, I haven't had any experience dealing with FEMA.
How'd you hear about the job?
Through Wanda Flaherty, yeah.
Sorry, sure.
Thank you.
So if we went to current or former coworkers of yours, what would they say that your 2 strongest traits in the workplace would be, and what's your biggest challenge?
My strongest traits would probably be my personality. I work well with people, typically a good leader. My biggest challenge, not be prepared for it. Not about teaching. I can't think of my biggest challenge off the top of my head. Let me think.
Well, maybe I can ask a different twist on the same question. What do you think your biggest challenge would be in this position?
Probably just getting up to speed. Like I said, I've been away from the city for 5-6 years, so it's just getting up to speed would be my biggest challenge right now.
Can you just describe your personnel management experience, especially with union positions?
I haven't had a lot of experience with union positions. Most of my stuff has been non-union, but I have had crews up to 30 people. I've also dealt with a lot of subcontractors and different things like that. I was a boat captain. I had 3 to 4 crew underneath me in that position, plus customers and clientele, depending on what boat I was running. But as far as my construction part, I did have, like I said, crews up to about 30 different phases, you know, foremen and workers, laborers, and that kind of thing.
And can you tell us your experience with both preparing a budget for a department our size and maintaining a budget and managing to a budget?
As far as that, that goes along with my building and development experience at construction company that I had. I was the one that dealt with all the finances and the budget. It probably wasn't as large as the city budget, but it was still a budget, and I was able to keep within the budget and work on projects that can keep within that budget and the timelines that were necessary.
Do you have any experience with public entities, budgeting with public money? It's a little bit different.
Just a little bit, but when I was here. Go ahead, John.
John?
During your construction ownership time, you talk about land development projects.
Yes.
Can you, but it's a general statement, can you identify to us a project and what it consisted of?
One of the projects is just down the street. Can't think of what we called it at the time. It's like, what is it? It's 5 acres. It's just 1 or 2 blocks down on the right here on Milwaukee. It was a 5-acre parcel. That was the one, just one here in the city. And it consisted of everything from infrastructure, sewer, water, dealing with the problems with connecting to the sewers and water systems that we have here in the city, street preloads and things like that.
John?
Thank you. Question, I was looking at your resume and stuff like that, and there's about 3 years missing in there. Was that, I know you referred to a personal departure in 05, so I was wondering if it was, you were out employed at that time, or?
Yes.
You know, not without getting too personal, but it's a gap in your
Right.
your history, so I'm trying to pull it
correct.
out. So, now you've been out, I'm going to keep going, because
Go ahead.
you've been out for from the city, you worked as a building inspector. And I don't know to what extent you make a lot of references about working with John Walsh.
Right.
But as a building inspector, you're still fairly limited to that job role.
Right.
So the concern, one of the things I'm concerned about is for the last 4 or 5 years, you've been a ship captain. You haven't even been in the construction environment.
This is true.
So there's a lot of requirements as in this position for working with city engineering. We don't have a city engineer.
Right.
So there's really a lot of responsibility keeping on top of the public works department as well as the community development projects.
Right.
And dealing with management, budget, accounting, you know, department head requirements.
Right.
Just having a little bit of, I have a little bit of concern with the qualifications and stuff like that right now. But I just want, if there's anything you can say that might convince me that otherwise.
Well, as far as my development experience, I dealt with that kind of stuff. I dealt with engineers. I dealt with surveyors. I mean, I know how to deal with those kind of people. I dealt with them when I was here before. Yes, I've had 5 years away from it. But the theory is still the same. That hasn't changed over 5 years. How to deal with engineers and how to deal with the budgeting for a project and things like that has not changed. So in that way, I don't know if that puts you a little bit at ease. You know, I do, like I said, I do understand the concern to get away from it. I have done some small projects over the last 5 years just for myself, but nothing big. So I have stayed with construction and development in my own stuff, but I haven't done anything commercially.
Since you don't have a lot of experience with union workers, and the city's had a few issues this year, I've asked this of other applicants for other positions. The insurance company, Writ services, provide training for dealing with all sorts of issues that are common in the city environment. Would you be willing to take and heed their training on the management issues where you don't have the experience?
Oh yes, definitely. I'm always interested in more schooling.
Any other questions? You have any questions?
Gary, you got any questions?
Jerry?
Well, I guess I'm still not satisfied on some of the answers as far as like pertinent federal and state, local law, regulations, codes, and ordinances. Codes change yearly, and if you've been away from it for 5 years, I'm a little concerned with that. And one of the minimum qualifications for the job is a bachelor's degree from an accredited college or university with major casework in civil engineering, public administration, urban planning, or appropriated field. I don't see that here.
Right.
It's one of my major concerns about a public works director, and that's a minimum qualification that is required for this job. So can you tell me how I get around that?
Well, I would say, just like any other job, that has a minimum requirement of such as a bachelor's degree. Also, field experiences is that, you know, can be as good as a degree, at least in my experience in dealing with people. That, as far as the bachelor's degree, as far as getting up to date with the codes, that's just a matter of research, and not everybody knows the codes. Anybody that even works with codes every day don't know the codes by heart. So it's something that you have to look up.
So we're in kind of a unique position here because we have the Public Works and Community Development Director. So can you give us an idea of what your understanding of the position is?
As far as the Public Works, basically to oversee the Public Works Department and oversee the city's public works. As far as community development, that would be like planning and oversee planning and things like that, as far as keeping the community moving. That's the way I see it.
And have you worked with planning before?
Yes.
What kind of experience do you have?
Yeah, I have. Like I said, I was on the planning commission here for 4 years and dealt with Paula for quite a bit. And Howard.
Any other questions?